Think about the breath that enters your lungs and satisfies your brain with oxygen. Think about how your existence is beautiful as you take this breath that has given you life. Then, as you exhale, feel the negativity leave with the carbon dioxide that was once inside of your body. This negativity may have been inside, bottling up your emotions and distracting you from what really matters. Don't let this negativity feed the brain that serves you, but instead transform your brain into potential. Breathe in the perspective of the ability to become whoever you desire, and do not let your past define you. We all face difficult circumstances and overwhelming challenges, but today you have the choice to move on and surpass any of these trials. You have the option to let go of your mistakes, depression, anxieties, and any other negativity. I know you can, because I have, and I am no better than anyone else. We all have equal probability to rise above the darkness and become a legend within our own mind. Trust me, it wasn't easy for me at first, but then it became a necessity to overcome with a bright perspective. A perspective that I relate to my self-mastery. Today, you will hear how to master your state of mind and make peace within, regardless of how challenging your life may seem. But before that, let's time travel into the past, about 25 years ago. This was a time that may have seemed normal to everyone else, but in one toddler's mind, it was the beginning of torment, fear, and suffering. A time that hope began to fade, and a place where darkness began to surround. This little toddler was me, who was currently unaware of how hard life will soon become. At the age of 3, my father started physically abusing me. This was the start of something that nobody would have expected to go through at a young age. The start of something that would only get worse and soon evolve into a life filled with fear and doubt, with the feeling of love being absent for the next 10 to 15 years. As I began to age from a toddler into a kid, the amount of abuse increased due to my reactions of protection. I started developing survival skills that I would hope no young child would ever need to use. My attempts to defend myself resulted in more abuse, when primarily I was just trying to discover a way to be safe both physically and, more importantly, mentally. I remember times that I cried myself to sleep at night wondering if anyone loved me, rather than feeling the physical pain that I just suffered through. It was typical in those scenarios that I would wake up the next morning with my eyes stuck together from the dried tears that I wept the whole night. I could have imagined days where an adult wouldn't sit upon my stomach as I was pinned to the ground while using his fist to connect a force going across my face back and forth until my face bruised. But unfortunately, that imagination was in vain, and there was many more of those days to come. As things continued to get worse, my instincts for survival became more hostile as well. It eventually got to the point where I became a threat, not just to others but to myself. By the time I reached around the age of 13, CPS was involved a couple times. Unfortunately, each time that they came to investigate, the blame was turned on me, as others claimed that I was the problem. During this age, I could have probably counted hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, that I was abused. Even after my mom got a divorce, her boyfriends at the time would beat me with their grown man strength. This was a pattern I wondered if I would ever escape. While looking back, I often imagine during those moments if I began to accept that to be my reality, rather than hoping that one day I would have peace. As the thoughts of fear rushed into my mind, I started to get overwhelmed with darkness and negativity. When it seemed like it couldn't have gotten any worse, it unfortunately and certainly did. Soon, every single thought became a battle, and every day I began to hope for something that seemed impossible. Now you have had the chance to understand, or at least visualize, what I went through. I explain this story not because it consumes me with hate and fear, but rather for you to know that the state of mind techniques that I learned and will now teach you can be mastered by anyone from any background and under any circumstance. But before I tell you, I would like to acknowledge to you that I have no hate in my heart and perhaps no regret or wish of a different life from what I went through, because it was what allowed me to grow, develop, and understand self-mastery. So let's get straight to it. What is self-mastery? Well, self-mastery is where you find the balance within all things, allowing your mind to exert more potential and energy than the majority of people would ever even imagine. Most people are lost in negative patterns, thoughts, and beliefs, just like I was. It is certain that the mind will have opposition, and there will be moments in life where it seems like giving up is the only option. However, what I'm about to explain goes beyond that exact normal way of thinking. For the mind to feel peace, it would also have to feel fear. This is the same thing with every other emotion and feeling. We have all experienced both spectrums of negativity and positivity, so you may be wondering why this relates to self-mastery. Self-mastery is the power of understanding and building a perspective that isn't necessarily built upon happiness, but built on positivity. Once you can feel positive, even when you're sad, depressed, angry, torn apart, or any other similar emotion, we begin to feel stronger and undefeated, which prevents us from falling into a cycle of despair and allows us to progress mentally, physically, and spiritually. This will most definitely help your inner progression, because instead of our own emotions working against us and building limitations, our emotions help us move forward, experience life in abundance, and live a life of balance. Within the balance, all the emotions work together. They understand and respect each other without neglecting each other. The feeling of happiness should understand that it isn't the only emotion, and perhaps soon will be overcome with sorrow and pain. Although we can return to the feeling of happiness faster and more abundantly through reprogramming our mind, we must be careful and self-aware of where our attention turns to, because oftentimes we can feed the wrong thoughts into a stronger perception of negativity. The thoughts that we entertain should be centered around being positive. Now, this may seem like too much of a task, especially when you are facing the deaths of sorrow or being overpowered by anger during an upsetting event. However, once you recognize that this suffering isn't an eternity and the pain is there just for the moment, you begin to develop rational thinking and start to make logical decisions. This may sound like it is difficult to learn, but in reality it isn't. It's just what you feed the brain. You can recreate your perspective at any time by just changing how you understand the world and by being aware of the many associations you feed the brain. This is one of the most powerful ways to experience life with a ultimate purpose of reaching self-mastery. Think about the young kid I was that believed there would be no opportunity for peace and long-lasting happiness. The doubt I had soon became a desire to feel peace. Then that desire soon transformed into hope, and that hope was what delivered the action to manifest it. It is important to be careful what you feed your brain, especially while feeling the impacts of negative emotions consuming the mind through tough experiences. Unfortunately, I cannot guarantee that you will avoid those moments, but I can promise you, through your own perspective, you can overcome them and perhaps turn them into reason. I started to become stronger through self-mastery once I realized that every challenging circumstance defines my character and not my future. I have created life's value learning so others can learn to reach self-mastery and reach their true self-development potential. I truly believe what I went through as a kid was a blessing instead of a curse, because now I have the chance to inspire many on how to master their state of mind. Then after you have mastered it, you will then experience its divine power and utilize its intelligence to create a life of abundance.